Ideals, idealism, and responsibility. I wrote this blog this afternoon after talking with my mom on the phone, and she said something that resulted in me being mad. And what I thought about was the source of resentment. I actually mentioned the source of resentment, and it has to do with idealism. I've been talking to someone named Daniela for a long time about idealism and ideals, and probably lots of people that I've talked to have heard me make references to idealism. Last week, I was in a class taught by Dr. Carl Freestone, or facilitated by him, and there was some question about resentment and forgiveness and responsibility. It was part of the issue. It wasn't necessarily what was spoken, but there was a historical fact in someone's life that was a source of some tension and resentment and things like that. And the conversation touched on the possibility of a dissolving of resentment. So those are all some points of background as we get into ideals, idealism, and responsibility. Maybe after I read the script that I've written here, I will comment more on some of what I just said in the introduction here. So the first thing I want you to know is that ideals are completely natural. They happen in language, and they're completely natural. For example, consider when someone uses a cell phone, and then they say something like, "Ideally, my cell phone would have excellent reception no matter where I am." That is stating an ideal. An ideal is just an idea of a possible attractive outcome or circumstance. Maybe it's not even possible, but just an attractive outcome or circumstance. It's an ideal. It's an idea. It's in language. Ideally, I would have fully charged my cell phone's battery last night, but I did not charge it all. Ideally. Ideally. When we say ideal, we're talking about an ideal. So ideals are natural and useful. If I conclude that it would be ideal to have a fully charged battery every morning, then I can take actions, like every evening, that correspond to that outcome, to that ideal. That is not idealism. That's just recognizing some ideas and some priorities, some possibilities, preferences, and some ideals, like what I value. So what is idealism? Idealism is a particular way of getting to ideal. Imagine that I expect my battery charger for my phone to last forever. Why? Because that would be convenient. I'd like that. It would be really valuable to me if it did last forever. But what if I expected that? What if I expected that the things that fit my values were already in place for me in every single case? Imagine that I expect my battery charger for my cell phone to last forever. Not just presume it, but expect it to. So if it stops working, then what do? Do I get embarrassed and then blame someone for causing my embarrassment? I might say, can't these people just make a cell battery that lasts forever? Why do I even need to use a charger? Seriously, why didn't you pack my other charger? Why? So that's not the ideal of having the cell phone be charged. That has to do with a way to relating to the ideals and a way of relating to life and relating to other people. That's idealism. Relating to ideals as if they should be what's already occurring. Ideal could be, wow, it would be really great. It would be ideal if my cell phone's battery was charged. Ideally, it would be charged. An ideal could have that would rather than should. Idealism tends to have shoulds either in the actual language of idealism or implicit. So let's say my battery of my phone is not charged. And I do not like that it isn't charged. It's inconvenient. It causes, some kind of a embarrassing situation. So the frightened embarrassment, because embarrassing always means that I am afraid of being recognized by other people as having produced the results that I produced, that frightened embarrassment can lead to frustration. Who am I going to blame? Which can lead to blaming, and that can lead to resentment and contempt. We can blame the scientists. Why? For not inventing a battery that never loses its charge. Why haven't they invented a battery that never loses its charge? Why don't they have a cell phone that doesn't even need a battery, doesn't need a charger? Why? Okay, that would be idealism, frustration, contempt. It's not the deal of having a cell phone with a charged battery that can work. That's an ideal. So we can blame the government because they should have funded the scientists, and or we could blame the neighbor because they did the thing that made the power. They put many refrigerators onto the power circuit and it blew the whole circuit. It's their fault, and that may be true. It doesn't help any to blame them, right? It may not help it doesn't make the battery charged to blame the neighbor or the government or to blame the foreigners because they're the ones that should have invented better cell phones because some of them are really smart, and they should have invented better cell phones, and they should have been working harder to make charging devices that are more efficient and stuff, right? Or we could blame the devil. Always a popular target of scapegoating and blame. The devil. If it wasn't for the devil, then my cell phone would be charged right now. That's all I'm saying. So if all of them, the devil, the foreigners, the government, the neighbor, the scientists, whatever, if all of them fulfilled my ideals for me, then I would not be responsible for fulfilling them myself, right? I can resent them for blocking me, for failing me, for causing my embarrassment, for not doing what they should, and for doing what they should not. That resenting is based on idealism, not on the ideals themselves of what I would value, but on idealism of relating to what I value as if it should already be. And if the methods I've been using should already fulfill on the ideals. That's idealism. Resenting is not responsibility. Resenting is not being responsible for recognizing my ideals as my ideals or my priorities, and then explore methods that fulfill the ideals. Resenting is not being responsible. Not being responsible for recognizing the ideals as ideals, and then exploring methods that fulfill the ideals. Resenting, I'm not exploring new methods of fulfilling ideals, right? Unless the resenting is a method to fulfill the ideal, unless the ideal is to distance myself from someone in particular, or to alienate them, or distance myself from all people, well, then that might be resentment fulfilling an ideal. I mean, there must be a reason for us to resent. It must have some value, or we would never do it. But typically, resentment is just a social signal in a personal situation where we basically, it's a kind of, you could say, passive aggression. We're pushing someone away a little bit. We're withdrawing them a little bit. It's not as intense as contempt. Resentment is not as intense as contempt, but resentment is required in order to produce contempt. There has to be blame and resentment, and then it can build up and create contempt. So we all can understand that it can be frustrating when life does not go how we might think it would be ideal, how we would value, how we might think that it should go. Well, it can be frustrating if it doesn't. And if we don't know how to produce that result. Let's say that I'm doing something, it's not producing the result I like, and I realize that, I'm frustrated. Why? Not because I didn't produce the result I would like, but because I don't know what I'm going to do next to explore. The frustration comes from a lack of awareness of another viable alternative, another favorable, reliable alternative. It's being kind of, it's like a grieving process. I realized that this method that I was expecting ideally would work great isn't working great. So that can be frustrating. So some people might respond to that frustration by saying, just think positive and be grateful for what you do have. And that's fine. It's good to be grateful. Sometimes it's really relevant and functional to make note of what's available and what's happening and kind of stop the conversation of resentment and just look at, okay, well, what's actually going on? What are my values? What are my alternatives, and so on. So anyway, some people might respond to frustration by saying to themselves or saying to someone else, just think positive and be grateful for what you do have. Be grateful for everything. Maybe it is for the best that you just accept that your ideals do not fit with what has been happening. Just abandon your ideals. Just pretend to be happy while you are resigned and cynical and hopeless. And you actually have the experience of contempt and anger and being scared and worried and grieving and so on. And just suppress all that and pretend to be happy. Well, people don't actually say all that typically, right? Ever. But people often say some of those things, like think positive, even attempting not to have any ideals, like a new ideal of not having ideals. Well, all of those things are still idealism. Think positive. It's based in idealism. Anything except being responsible for fulfilling ideals is not being responsible for fulfilling on ideals. Rather than say think positive, let's say, well, let's notice what's valuable, what's priority. Let's not think positive, let's notice what's a priority. And we could say that thinking positive would be like, okay, notice what's a priority, and then imagine a method that would fill that priority or might fill in that priority, and then, what can we do about it? Well, it's not about thinking positive. It's about actually recognizing the value and then taking an action to fulfill on it. And thinking can be part of that. But thinking positive in and of itself is just thinking positive. It doesn't actually produce any results. If thinking positive stops someone from doing something that isn't working, that would be relatively an improvement, right? So thinking positive in this case would be really valuable to stop doing something working that's frustrating you and think positive. Okay, but when you're done thinking positive, find something that fits what you value and do that and fulfill on your values to the extent that you have any. And if you don't have any, consider that if you don't know that you have any, consider that you do, and maybe they're all the essentials are fulfilled. But be responsible for continuing with their fulfillment. As it's not like it requires anything special. It's just natural. You recognize a value. You explore methods that fulfill on it. So there is a special form of idealism that many people experience. I mentioned it already. The ideal of having no ideals. And that is a natural ideal like any other ideal. I may recognize that ideals are somehow connected to frustration and contempt. And then I recognize that ideally I would minimize or avoid frustration and contempt and resentment. So why not remove all ideals? Ideals are somehow part of the background of the problem, so let's just remove that part. Well, that form of idealism may be the most frustrating of all. It's also ironic and hypocritical. However, the intensity of the frustration can lead to the recognition of the function of ideals, the distinguishing of what ideals are. Ideals organize our activity. Our ideals organize our activities, which produce our results. So we could say that ideals inform our results or guide our process, something like that. I mean, that's what ideals are. Someone recognized the ideal of minimizing or avoiding frustration and contempt. one experiment in fulfilling on that ideal, not just having the ideal, but fulfilling on it, is the ideal of suppressing or reversing all ideals, or at least suppressing and reversing all other ideals except for the ideal of having no frustration or contempt. So that may not ever work, just to wish that there was no wishing. It's ironic, it's hypocritical, whatever. It just doesn't work. But people may keep trying it and then keep hoping for it to start working eventually, thinking positive, like malignant optimism and so on. You could even say it's like denial. That's, if you want to look up the term malignant optimism, it's like insanity. What is it? The popular definition of insanity: doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results from the same method. So having ideals is not the source of frustration and contempt and resentment. It's not sufficient. Having ideals does not automatically produce frustration and resentment and contempt. The source of frustration and resentment and contempt may be of interest to you, though. Here's what it is. The source of frustration and resentment and contempt is the activity of relating to ideals as if they should already be fulfilled, relating to them idealistically rather than realistically. They're just real ideals. Oh, this is what I value. This is priority. Okay. Some ideals are realized, if only temporarily. There's ideals happening and then ideals getting realized. Sometimes only temporarily. Some ideals may never get fulfilled for a particular individual, within a particular time frame at least. So some ideals may only get fulfilled through exploration of innovative methods. I might not already know how to fulfill the ideal. I'm confronted with an ideal that I don't already have mastery in regard to. I don't already know how to produce the results to fulfill the ideal. Wow! Learning is possible right there. Curiosity, learning, maybe I ask for assistance from somebody, maybe I have somebody help me do something for me, go to a specialist, an expert, somebody who's demonstrated competence in a particular area, who's clearly performed and produced results that are of value to me. Oh, well, I can say, well, what results have you produced? And then, oh, how did you do them? Can you do that for me? Okay, and from there. But an idealistic way of relating to ideals could produce a statement like this. But I should not have to change methods. The methods that are most familiar to me used to work just fine for me. It's that one political party. That's who is to blame for my old familiar methods no longer working for me. And they should. And that political party, they ones that are the problem, and they should stop doing the things that they're doing that they shouldn't be doing, and they should do the things they should do, and my method should be working again. And it is not insane. It is frustrating it's very frustrating to continue to use methods that are not working. So one thing somebody might do when they notice the experience of frustration is pause. Even stop altogether. Just stop it. Something's not working. You don't even have to wait to get frustrated. Just, if it's not working, stop. If it is not working and you continue to do it, that could be frustrating, and then stop. As soon as you notice it's not working, stop. So it's perfectly natural conclusion to make that we would blame somebody else and resist changing methods. We would want to try the same old methods and say, oh, well, I'm going to just keep with that method, and other people, they should change what they're doing so that my method continues to work. Well, it's a perfectly natural conclusion to make, which is why it's so popular. I want that political party to change, that political system to change. I want that biological principle to change. I want gravity to stop being so strong or so weak or so universal or whatever. I want this to change. I want geology to change. I want circumstances to change so that my methods fit my values, priorities, my ideals. That's totally natural. However, sometimes it is simply easier to change one's own methods than to change the activities of hundreds or millions of other people, to change the laws of physics or thermodynamics or gravity or whatever. Even if one changes the activities of hundreds or millions of other people, it may be best to occasionally change one's own methods. Like getting a new cell phone occasionally, like once every 10 years, maybe once every 5 years. Idealism is basically the ideal that I should not have to be responsible for producing the results that I value. Someone else should. Somebody else. I can't even name them. Oh, it's a group or it's an individual, I'll tell you. It's a perfectly natural ideal, right? To have that ideal that I should be responsible and other people should. What could be more convenient than if parents did everything for you your whole life? Or if your government did everything for you? Or if your employer did everything for you? To not pay so much attention to your competitors. I mean, really, they're not good customers. They're paying it. They're watching television. They're listening to the radio. They're searching, looking at these other ads and other websites. They're paying way too much attention to the competition. My customers shouldn't be doing that. They should be chasing after me, banging on the door, saying, "No, your prices are too low. I want to pay you more." Right? That's how it should be. What if your life was already exactly a perfect fit for your ideals? Wouldn't that be great if your circumstances were already a perfect fit for what you value most? Man, that would be great. It's totally natural ideal, right? What if your ideals were already a perfect fit for your life? Wouldn't that be ideal? That, the exact circumstances I have, that's a perfect fit with my priorities and values? Man, that would be just great. Maybe. Maybe it's natural to have the deal that someone else, a group or individual, should be solely responsible for producing the results that you value or that I value. Maybe it's natural to expect other people to already know exactly what you value most, and also to know when your values change, because they should. I mean, if I have to explain it to them, then that sounds like work. It sounds like me being responsible. And the point is, other people be responsible completely. I can name them for you. In fact, I resent them. They're the ones who should be doing the things they should be doing and should not be doing the things they should not be doing. So it may be natural to have that kind of idealism, that kind of resentment, that kind of contempt and so on. It may be natural, but is it ideal? What if the person or people who is responsible for your life are eventually no longer available? Maybe it goes great. For 18 years, your parents handled these things and that thing, those, whatever. Maybe that's going great. Cool. Maybe your government, is awesome and they employ you and you're in the military for 25 years and then whatever. Maybe it's just working great. However, eventually it's possible that those people or that individual person that's been responsible for your life is no longer available. They might even die. What if their cell phone battery dies? What if their cell phone reception suddenly falters and they're the ones who are responsible for everything going right, me, and then they're no longer able to be responsible? I should blame them, right? I should resent them. Isn't that the natural thing? Somebody's been responsible for me for a long time, helpful and treating me for a long, and then they no longer there. So I get angry at them because they should still be there. Why'd they die? That was a personal insult to me, wasn't it? Their cell phone battery died. They didn't pay their bill. That's probably because they didn't charge it, and they didn't charge it because they died. They didn't pay their bill because they died. It all comes back to they died and they shouldn't have, or whatever, right? So it sounds kind of absurd, but it might be kind of popular. It might be kind of familiar, some of what I'm saying. So yeah, it's fine if other people are responsible for your life or parts of your life for whatever period of time. If you work in a large company, there's going to be responsibilities shared throughout the company. But what if someone no longer is fulfilling a particular responsibility? Well, if you're the manager of the company, the owner of the company, you're gonna explore other methods probably. If it's in your life and your parents are responsible for you, and then at some point, you turn 18 or you turn 21 or whatever it may be, and you're now out there attempting to be responsible, well, it might be challenging. It might be frustrating. And you might experience resentment, contempt, frustration, so on. So consider a new ideal. All that stuff's natural. All that stuff can occur. But consider a new ideal. It might be new. Consider that idealism is required to produce the recognition of the ideal of responsibility. Idealism, if we're going to call it a form of irresponsibility, that's what provides us the contrast to show us responsibility. We're seeing other people's responsibility. We can thank them for their contribution to us, and then we can stop resenting them. We can thank them for their contribution to us, whatever it may be. Maybe they did 5 things really, really poorly, and only 2 things really well. Well, we can thank them for the 2 things they did really well. They only did it once. They only did 1 thing and only did it once. Well, we can thank them for that. We can be appreciative of that. And the fact that they did a bunch of other things or didn't do things, that's just something to get and move on. It's kind of the mature, responsible thing at some point is to move on. So if somebody was frightening to me, and I want to be responsible for my well-being, then I might remove themselves. I might remove myself from them, retreat from them, or I might remove them from my life. That would work too, naturally. So there's a number of things that would constitute being responsible, depending on the particular party. Doesn't mean ignoring that somebody isn't producing a result that they're not producing. Responsibility means me recognizing that I'm not producing the result that I value, and then taking actions to produce that result. So the ideal of responsibility does not exclude other people's responsibility, but it includes me as the primary author of responsibility for the results produced by the methods active in my life, the things I'm doing, my life. I'm responsible for my life, the results, the methods, the values. I'm responsible for recognizing what I value. Sometimes people talk about creating their priorities. Well, that could mean like refining a list of priorities if we write out a list. I'm going to do this on Monday, and then because it's a higher priority and I need to have that done first, and then on Tuesday I'm going to do this thing that it doesn't make any difference to do unless I do that thing on Monday. Okay, so prioritizing ongoing happens. It's more of a recognition process. I don't have to invent my priorities. I just recognize the priorities I have, and then I may invent methods or refine methods or research methods for fulfilling on those priorities. If I am responsible for my life, then perhaps I can contribute to the lives of others responsibly as well. I can share with them the methods that I've used. I can share with them the distinction of responsibility and idealism. I can share with them. I can contribute to them. And I probably won't do that if I am drowning underwater and need some air first. I'll get air first, right? If I'm in a certain financial circumstance, I might address that first. If I'm in a certain physical violence, physical danger situation, I might move to safety first. I'm not gonna call someone and tell them how to fix life when I have an emergency situation. Now, I might call and ask them what's going on. Hey, can I support you in that once I have certain essentials stable? That's actually what works well. To try and help other people when I'm not steady myself might work very well for anyone. It might help them a little bit temporarily, and that's fine. But if I give someone so much help that I do not have my own well-being
maintained, then I'm going to have some kind of a breakdown potentially. I might get a second chance. I might not even get a second chance, but I might have a breakdown, a second chance, reprioritize and make my own welfare a priority sooner, fulfill on it better, focus on it, and actually have it handled or have it fulfilled, and then contribute to others once I have that stability. Also, if I want to teach someone Spanish, I would have to know Spanish first, right? So practicing stuff allows me to have more skills, more concepts for me to share with others from a position of stability, confidence, skillfulness, all that. Idealism. Idealism includes an idea like I should contribute to others. That's not required. It's not what I'm talking about. Ideally, my life already is contributing to the lives of other people. I mentioned the possibility of an organization. I could to my co-workers. They contribute to me. We all together contribute to the owners of the company and the customers that may volunteer to buy our products. And then I take some income and I go and buy other things. I do all these different things I do. They're contributing to other people whenever they are. So that's a possibility of content. It starts to show up. I start recognizing is what I mean by to show up. It's the same activities that may have been going on already. But when I stop resenting, when I stop having contempt for other people, I notice things that I didn't notice before. Because my attention is available, instead of being preoccupied, I start to notice opportunities as well. I start to notice other people willing to contribute to me that aren't contributing because I've not accepted their invitation or something. So my life already is contributing to the lives of other people, ideally. If it's not, okay. But it could be. And that's an ideal if I say it's valuable to me to contribute to the lives of others. That's an ideal. So my influence on other people may include some things that may not be all that. People may ask for it, people may request, but I might at some point decide to discontinue something that other people are requesting. My influence on other people may include perpetuating their experiences of frustration and resentment and contempt. I could be triggering it. They could have an association with me, but I could just be triggering whenever I do. So I perpetuate or even magnify, foster, nourish people's experiences of frustration and resentment, contempt. I can agree with them. I can say, I have contempt for that too. And that is okay. That could be valuable. That could be an ideal. That could be a part. I am socializing with somebody and we can agree, yeah, I really get where you're coming from and I agree about that. We can, rather than reinforce the frustration aspect of it, we can actually have that experience of connection. So that's distinct from the experience of frustration. Yeah, I get how that would be frustrating for you. I used to be frustrated by the same thing, or I still am from time to time. So I could contribute to other people in a way that's counterproductive. That's not even contributing. My influence on other people can include perpetuating their suffering, perpetuating experiences of frustration, resentment, contempt, opposing them, trying to fix them, having contempt for them, having contempt for me, resent them, resenting me. That's me resenting. It's like a codependency enabling kind of partnership, really. It's a collaboration where two people get to experience frustration or contempt or resentment or whatever. Here's another kind of range of influence I can have on other people. I may inspire them. They may not even know something's possible that I demonstrate to them or tell them, and that they recognize in speaking with me or in hearing about me or whatever. They see a TV show, whatever. They read a book. I could inspire other people. I may already inspiring other people. Maybe a few, maybe a lot, whatever. I can inspire people. Or I may challenge people.
like personally, I know them, and I challenge them on certain things. I say, hey, you know that thing about your contempt toward whatever? I'm going to challenge you on that. Now, you don't have to accept this challenge, but if you do accept the challenge, then here are some consequences. And if you don't accept it, then here are consequences. I make challenges, or I make those invitations. You can call it an invitation. A challenge just may have a tone of more of an inner of, look, this is a really high priority issue. Or I may inspire people and challenge them. I may do both. Groups of people can inspire individuals. Individuals can inspire all that. Groups challenge individuals, etc. So, very beginning of the blog, I post a image of Gandhi, a little piece of a quote. He is reported to have said, "Be the change you want to see in the world." Now, he doesn't accent like that. He probably said, like, "Be the change that you want to see in the world." And he's like a little older than me, so when he said it, just imagine that he said, "Be the change you want to see in the world." Just imagine it's Mahatma Gandhi talking to you right now, across from you or whatever, saying, "Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you wish to see in the world." I don't know whether he also said, "You and the world are overlapping," not two isolated objects, not two isolated entities or identities. You and the world are overlapping. Because you is a label language, the world is a label language, and they're overlapping in terms of what is covered by that label. The world is a pretty inclusive label. You and the world are overlapping. When you change, the whole world is changing too, because you are part of the whole world. Which part of the whole world is not part of the whole? Every part of the whole world. Right? Every part of the world is part of the world. So when you and your part of the world changes, that's part of the world changing. In fact, that's the world changing, because the whole world includes all of its parts. So when you notice a change in any part of the world, that is already you changing within it, changing within the world. Noticing a change is a change. If you notice something and then all of a sudden noticing changes, the world changing. That's a change in the world. Right there, noticing something change is the changing of the world. It is impossible for you not to change the world. You are already changing the world. Again, when you change, the world changes, because the world includes you. It's impossible for you to change the world. You are already changing the world. How are you changing it? Well, you're contributing to people's delight and joy and clarity. You could be influencing people towards confusion and frustration and resentment and contempt. All those things are cool. Those are the kinds of changes that you can bring about with the world, that happen in the world. Also, are the world changing? When you change, that is the world changing through you. When you perceive an ideal, that is the world perceiving an ideal through you. When you experience frustration, that is the world experiencing frustration through you. When you resent anything, that is the world resenting through you. When you have contempt for anything, contempt, oh my God, that is the world having contempt through you. When you are responsible, that is the world being responsible through you. So I said at the very beginning I might comment a little bit more on the background that resulted in me writing the article that I'm now. Let's think, what else might I say about it? As I was reading it, I thought, my mom, I said, had been angry at something she said. And that's not the first time I'm angry at my mom. My mom has contributed to me immensely throughout my life, especially in the early stages, naturally. And she's also done things that I resented or that I found frustrating or infuriating or what it may be, just an hour ago. Maybe just irritating or annoying, but nevertheless, she's done a whole variety of things. I can appreciate all the stuff that I find valuable. I can
encourage her to do those things. I can encourage other people to do those things. I'm grateful for that stuff. I can tell her that I'm grateful for those things. And then there's a bunch of other things. Yep, I can learn from arguing with my mom. I've argued with her. If I am arguing with anyone, I can learn what it is. How else do you know what argue? Don't argue with someone. How are you going to know what resenting if you don't resent? How are you going to know contempt feels, or frustration, or terror, or shame, or delight, or responsibility, or hope, or wonder? How are you going to wonder? It's like you don't wonder. You got to wonder a little bit, or else you won't know what wondering is, right? So there isn't any particular issue left over with my mom. If I recognize ideals as ideals, my values, I'm responsible. It doesn't exclude other people being responsible. It doesn't mean that I wasn't mad or that I wouldn't be mad again if she said something. I could be responsible for being mad. I could challenge her, inspire her. I could, withdraw from her. I could reframe the dynamic, the interaction, whatever. I actually have no specific intention. It relates to my mom. She was talking with me about, I may talk to her, I probably will talk to her again about it at some point, have a sense of it being a big issue for her. It was more of something that I didn't really want to talk to her about in the way that she was offering to talk to me. She wasn't too pushy or anything. It was more like, I declined. And it brought up a sense of resentment, embarrassment, fear, anger, setting boundaries, all those things. I can be responsible. And I might say to her, hey, this experience. I might do that. Whether or not I do that is up to me. It's not up to her. It's not like, oh, she should have been more responsive. She should have asked me how I feel or whatever. She either does or doesn't. I either do or do not. I have the priority. My mom contributes to me by saying something that lets me distinct responsibility and idealism, anger and resentment and so on. Acknowledging I've resented lots of, and if I had to pick one person I've resented most of my life, it might be my mom. Isn't that interesting? She might be the person who's contributed me most as well. And yet I've resented her quite a bit. I could apologize for that. Now that's something that would probably be kind of cool, kind of interesting. Have I done it before? Okay, I could again. Every time I resent her, that's a new opportunity, right? Oh my gosh, we can look forward to resenting people, opportunity to connect and be responsible. So, that's it. That could be an ideal. To be responsible, that's an ideal. To connect with others, that's an ideal. It may be a priority. It may not be a priority. When it's a priority, then it's a priority. Idealism is to interact with ideals as if they already should be fulfilled. That government shouldn't be how it is. That's an expression of idealism. Idealism wrong? Well, it's a forming language. It's like a type of, speaking. It's a kind of a conversation. That should be how it isn't. That's idealism. And what is idealism? It's a kind of speaking. Like, that should be how it isn't. That's idealism. That's what it is. And so we can be responsible for idealism. Have I ever practiced idealism or experienced idealism? Absolutely. So that may be about it. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to make them known to me. You can put your replies on the video or your replies on the blog.
If you would like to share this, you can share it. Facebook or any other social media thing. You can repost the blog if you're a blogger yourself. Or any other blog that you find, any other content that you find really interesting, even fascinating. I encourage you to share it and contribute to other people when that's a priority that you're ripe to fulfill on. Until then, fulfill on whatever else is a higher priority. And that's it for now. I'm JR. It's July 21st. Be responsible. It's like a drinking and driving thing. Drink responsibly, drive responsibly. Or don't drink and do drive. Or don't drink and drive. Or don't drink and don't drive. Work it out.